Hello friends, the theme of today's lecture is Hindi Films and Mahesh Bhatt. And this lecture is on symbolic expression, and on the studio we have Manisha Sharma with us as an interpreter. And as all of us are aware that how cinema has played an important role in the context, that how not only as a medium of entertainment but also as a medium of communication, as a medium of education, its role has been diverse in the Indian as well as the international context. And some of the filmmakers like Mahesh Bhatt, who has a very long period in that sense that he has made a number of films, and all these films many a times we will not be able to discuss all of them, but some of them, and all these films we would see that how these films are related to the idea of reality, what all is happening in the society, and the kind of emotional value which has been there in certain films which he has made has also been immense. And we have also seen that in some of the films, the way he has portrayed the characters which are true to reality, and at the same time the kind of emotional appeal which is also there has been very well undertaken, or in a way portrayed by Mahesh Bhatt. So in the course of our discussion, we will try to analyze some of the films which have been made by Mahesh Bhatt, beginning from Earth, for example, which was a film which was dealing with the relations of the human beings, especially in the context of the marital relationships. And apart from that, another popular film called Daddy, which was dealing with the relationship between the parents and children. And then another film, Dil Hai Ki Manta Nahi, for example, which was some sort of a comedy, but the way it was trying to convey the kind of issues which are there in the society, that how adolescent behavior is such that it is not able to understand or distinguish between the good and bad, and many times it may cause some kind of problems to the parents. So in this context, we will try to analyze some of the films which have been made by him, especially one of them was Zakhm as well, and which was dealing with the Hindu-Muslim relations in such a sensitive manner that that film was able to not only get a lot of critical appreciation, but it also received a number of awards at the national level. So from the point of view of readings, one can see Gulzar's et al. Encyclopedia of Hindi Cinema, Mahesh Bhatt, Khwabon Ka Safar. Then the films of Mahesh Bhatt will be one of the important sources in the framework of the kind of understanding which we can develop with regard to the films. And then the wikipedia.com. So we will have some kind of a fair idea when we tend to understand the films which have been made by Mahesh Bhatt. And over the years, he has not only been a film director, but he has been a producer of so many other films which he has not directed. And at the same time, we have seen that he has been closely associated with script writing of some of the films as well. And in this context, when we try to see Mahesh Bhatt as a producer, screenwriter, director, so this kind of a multifarious role which has been undertaken by him. From the personal point of view, we see that his romance with her inspiration was for the film which he made, Ashiki, which became very popular in 1990s. And many times you've seen that the films which have been made by him, they are taking insights from his personal life, and the varied kind of themes, beginning from the communal harmony to extramarital affairs to complexities in the relationships, all have been undertaken by him. And Mahesh Bhatt personally has felt that U.G. Krishnamurti is his lifeline in that way, and if you take away U.G. Krishnamurti from his life, then he will be empty. So this is the kind of personal idea which he has, and the way he has tried to, in a way, lead his life and to follow the teachings of certain people with which he has felt inspired. So the kind of work which he has done has been immense, in that sense that some of the initial films which were made by him, for example, Lahu Ke Do Rang in 1979, in which Vinod Khanna had a double role. And in this film we find that how Vinod Khanna is part of the INA led by Subhash Chandra Bose to fight the British out of India. So some kind of historical background which could be seen in this particular film. And in Hong Kong he is held by Helen. Later they have a son portrayed by Danny. So we find that how Vinod Khanna, then he comes back to India and is killed by Ranjit, who is a villain. And later his son in India, Vinod Khanna, becomes inspector because the role which was played by him was a double role. So we find that the background of INA, the background of the Indian National Army or the Azad Hind Fauj was being used by him, and thereafter we find that this particular film where all of them they unite to seek revenge from Ranjit, who is the villain in the film. And we find that Helen received her first Filmfare Award as the best supporting actress in this particular film, and she was basically known for doing the kind of dance numbers in the film. And in this film, the way she acted, she was able to secure an award for herself. Then other films, especially Earth, which he made in 1982, was a semi-autobiographical film, and his extramarital relationship with a famous film actress. And it was very bold in its content, keeping in mind the times of 1980s, and it was given adult certificate by the Central Board of Film Certification in those times. And it raised the issue of gender equality as well, in the context that how the relationships they are in a way portrayed in the contemporary times, and how the story, when we try to see it from a perspective, how Kulbhushan Kharbanda is having an affair with Smita Patil, and the way he disregards his wife, played by Shabana Azmi. So this kind of a sensitive portrayal at this point of time. You can see the film clip as well.
Come on, तुम्हें कविता जी से मिलाऊं.
Hello, madam. Hello.
बहुत अच्छा गाया आपने, बहुत ही सच.
Nice meeting you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
इंद्र, सुनो. इंद्र.
Hello. अच्छा गाते हो. Thank you, sir. My pleasure. My pleasure.
क्या हुआ? Hello. I'm fine. क्या हुआ?
So in the clip, as we see that how the wife is feeling in a way rejected or neglected because of the extramarital affair of the husband, and such kind of things they were seen in urban life, and we find that in later times a number of films they have been made in the later times dealing with such kinds of portrayals. And when we tend to see the film, we find that how Shabana's character was a strong character in the film, and she does not want to live in the apartment which was given by her husband, and she also agrees to take care of the maid's daughter. This shows that how independent minded and at the same time sensitive she needs to the needs of others. And she also refuses to marry Rajkiran, who wants to marry her. And finally we see that she also rejects her husband in the climax, or when the film is ending. So she in a way finds the meaning of her life, and she comes out of her own insecurities which were there in this film. So some kind of a story which is dealing with the gender relations that is being conveyed in this particular film. And we also see that how the issue of breaking the marriage was also there in this particular film, that how two women they are vying for the same man, and how the guilt of Smita Patil, who was playing the other woman, and her own security in that context, that is also being shown in the film. And we see that Mahesh Bhatt, in a way, he says that the film looked at the issue of women's emancipation from a new perspective. And we have seen that how the issues of women, they have been central during the times even after independence, and the emancipation and empowerment of women has been talked about from all perspectives, not only from the side of the government, from the official point of view, but even in the arts, the issues of women, they have been communicated at different levels. So we find that how the movements of women in different points of time, they have been undertaken by the women leaders, especially after independence. And when we tend to see that these kinds of movements, their aim is to basically bring out women from the kind of chains in which they have been tied for so long. So all these kinds of concerns, they were being raised in films of Mahesh Bhatt, especially Earth, and in later films as well. He has tried to deal with these issues in a new kind of a perspective. Another film which I'd like to talk about is Saransh, which was made in 1984, and it was the story of an elderly Maharashtrian couple, those who were living in Mumbai, and how they come to terms with the death of their only son in a mugging incident in New York. And the film shows the despair of an elderly couple. And we find that how the old couple, they give a room on rent to Soni Razdan, and who played that character in this film, and we also see that the stalking and harassment by her lover's father. So all these kinds of things, they are being in a way conveyed in this particular film, and it was India's first official submission for the Academy Award for the best foreign language film. So basically the film talks about the kind of pain and the despair of an elderly couple, but at the same time it is also trying to communicate the kind of aloofness which is there in the metropolitan cities, and how women, they are in a way worst sufferers of this kind of a treatment which is many a times given to them by their lovers. And we have seen even recent incidents, and how the idea of the living in partners, and how these partners many a times they turn violent, and all these kinds of issues which are concerned with women, they had to in a way deal with all sorts of violence at the hands of the people in which they are concerned. So all these kinds of issues, they are in a way being shown, and you can see the film clip as well.
पता नहीं आपको ये सेशन चल रहा है। I don't care. आप अरेस्ट भी हो सकते हैं। आपने परमिशन लिया है? चल रहा है। आपका अपॉइंटमेंट है? कहाँ जा रहे हैं आप? मिनिस्टर साहब से मिलना है। आप यहाँ तक आए कैसे? क्या आपने अपॉइंटमेंट लिया? तो ऐसे नहीं आता। चलिए चलिए। मैंने चुना आपको, मेरी वजह से आप यहाँ इस कुर्सी पर अपॉइंटमेंट्स लेनी पड़ेगी मुझे। Who is this man? I'll tell you who I am. अपना खून दिया मैंने इस देश के लिए, अपनी जिंदगी के कीमती साल लगा दिए इस देश की आजादी के लिए।
So in the film clip we see that how Anupam Kher, who plays the central character of an old a father who is old enough, and how he is fighting against the system, his son who has died in US, and how the kinds of mortal remains of the son, he has to fight a lot to seek those mortal remains, and how he is criticizing that particular kind of a system. And the film also talks about the themes of loneliness and the anxieties of the old age, and that how a couple, those who are alone, and at the same time when their son is not there, they have a lot of anxiety, and the complete lack of direction old couple they find itself after the death of their only son. And we find that the retired headmaster played by Anupam Kher is unable to find a reemployment, and at the same time the old people's uselessness to the society is also being shown. And scholars like Dasgupta, they have talked about that how the corruption, the politics, crime nexus, and also the bureaucratic delay and widespread bribery and red tapeism, they are being shown through Anupam Kher's interaction with the custom officials and police. So we basically find that all the kinds of issues which are concerned with the society in the framework of the red tapeism as well as the bureaucratic delays and all sorts of corruption which are existent in the society, that has been communicated, and this is being reflected when Anupam Kher is interacting with the various officials in those who are working in the official capacity in the various government departments. So we find that such kind of issues, they are very, very relevant from the point of view of the society, and society at many points of time is trying to introspect that what kind of changes should be brought about to bring a kind of change in the society itself. Then we also have seen that some of the films of Mahesh Bhatt, for example Naam, which was made in 1986, in which you had a very popular song Chitti Aayi Hai, Watan Se Chitti Aayi Hai, and the lyrics were by Anand Bakshi and the singer was Pankaj Udhas, and this song was selected as one of the 100 songs of millennium by BBC Radio. And we also see, if we tend to understand the story of the film, the role which was played by Sanjay Dutt, who had this kind of a dream of making big abroad, and when he's there, how he is cheated there, and he also faces a lot of threat from the international smugglers. And the role played by Kumar Gaurav of supportive brother. So we find that such kind of characterizations, such kind of songs, especially this particular song, was central to the film, because the central character wanted to become some kind of he had that kind of a dream that he wanted to achieve big in a foreign land, and at the same time the kind of emotional bond which was there with one's own country is also being shown in this particular film. Apart from that, we also have seen that Mahesh Bhatt also made a film called Kash in 1987, in which we find Jackie Shroff and Dimple Kapadia as a married couple, and who face a serious crisis after a bankruptcy and marriage failure. So their separation and reunion when their child is diagnosed with a brain tumor, and how they learn to handle this painful reality is also being shown in this film, and how the marriage adjustments they are there in a particular family, they have also been exhibited. So we basically find that how the film portrays that the emotions of the parents, how they surpass everything which is there in the society, and how the parents over a period of time, when they are in this kind of a situation, they rediscover themselves, and at the same times they rediscover each other. So in this particular film we find that how human relationships, especially in the context of the marital relationships, how they are in a way central to the family, and how husband and wife, both of them, they also come together when they realize that their child is in a way in such kind of a situation which may cause his death as well. So they had to in a way handle this kind of a reality which was there, which was painful in nature, and how parents, they in a way put everything to the back burner. In that sense, they are largely concerned in a way with their children, and their emotions, they surpass everything whatever is there in that sense. So Mahesh Bhatt's characters and their picturizations, their portrayals, they have been in a way far more realistic in nature, and we also have seen that when you talk about this film, that it was an apt depiction of emotions at its highest and finest, and it rates alongside Anand, Mili and Khamoshi as one of the best tear-jerking films in Indian cinema. So film critics like Akshay Shah has talked about this particular kind of idea, and in this we find that films like Anand, Mili and Khamoshi, all of them which are such kind of projections, and which are in a way also dealing with a lot of emotions, which are dealing with the issue of life and death in such a way that they are far more inspirational in nature to all of us. So in that sense, we find that the Kash has been put alongside these kinds of films which were not only popular from the point of view of the way they were being made, but they are also considered to be some sort of classics in the long run because of such kind of portrayals. And in this particular film we find that how Jackie Shroff and Dimple Kapadia, both of them, they gave one of their best performances. So it also speaks volumes about the film director as well, because when we see that some of the film stars or film actors, they are doing far better with some of the filmmakers or film directors, and when you see them that many a times they are not able to give their best with the other directors. So it also shows that the director with which they are more comfortable, the director with which who is able to take out or extract out the best from these film actors. So Mahesh Bhatt had that kind of a quality in that sense, that so many film actors and actresses, they gave their best while they were working with Mahesh Bhatt. So if we tend to understand the films which have been made by Mahesh Bhatt from the times when he initiated in that sense, and thereafter, especially some of the films which we have already talked about, for example Earth, we have already talked about, and we have talked about Kash as well. And all these films, they are largely concerned with the human relationships, whether in the framework of husband and wife, whether in the framework of other kinds of relationships which have also been taken up by him. For example, in a film called Hame Rahi Pyar Ke, where he tries to show Amir Khan in a more responsible manner that he is a maternal uncle of a number of children whose parents had died in a road accident. So we find that Mahesh Bhatt was able to portray such kind of characters with some kind of a sensitivity which was required or demanded in these particular films, and how he was able to motivate or extract the best out of the film stars or film actors with whom he was working. So it is one of the important ingredients or one of the important qualities of a film director, that the actors are able to give their best with that particular director. So in this context, when we try to in a way analyze the films of Mahesh Bhatt and how his films, they have been concerned with the ideas of sensitivity, and how they are also concerned with a lot of complexities of the relationships which are there, then we find that his films, they have been phenomenal in that sense, and they have been able to handle those kinds of relationships which have been in a way conveyed through his cinema. So in the course of our discussion, we will talk about the films of Mahesh Bhatt in our next lecture. Thank you very much.